Breaking news, as there has been an unprecedented and dangerous announcement by President Trump on his Truth Social just moments ago. At the request of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, I am directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to our war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. I am also authorizing full force if necessary. I just want to remind everyone that under Trump's first term in office, he had asked his Secretary of Defense if troops could just shoot protesters in the legs. And they said no, absolutely not. Now he has a Secretary of War, Defense, whatever you want to call it, that seems to kind of be okay with that. He was even asked about this during his confirmation hearing and would not stand up against that. So he would likely do something like that if asked by the president. And that's why the end of that post is so disturbing. Full force if necessary. You know what that means. Guys, everyone needs to know about this. We could be barreling down a path right now where Trump turns our military against its citizens. Everyone in Portland needs to know about this. Everyone there, stay safe, be careful. This is dangerous. This is one of the most dangerous posts I've ever seen from this president. He is describing a situation that doesn't exist and authorizing force that is unnecessary. Let me know if you agree. Let people know about this. Spread the word. Comment, like, share, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
We have some major news right now. There is confusion within the Pentagon over what the term full force means after Donald Trump posted on Truth Social that he's directing the United States military to essentially go into Portland, Oregon against American civilians and authorizing, quote, full force if needed. That term right there, folks, essentially toes the line and potentially violates posse comitatus, which essentially prevents the United States military from acting against Americans, acting as the president's personal police force. And right now, folks within the Pentagon don't know what that term means. And just take a minute and let that sink in. The president of the United States posted something on Truth Social. His Pentagon doesn't know what it means, but it implies the use of the military against American civilians. This is a moment that doesn't call for normalization, it calls for action. No one should normalize the use of the United States military against American civilians, especially not the mainstream media. Spread the word, more to come soon. Follow along for all the news you need to know about and subscribe to my Substack at the link in my bio to support my work.
So Donald Trump is ramping up his war against the United States this morning. I don't know what else to call it other than a war against the United States. He says that he is sending the United States military into Portland and is authorizing full force against United States citizens. Here's what Trump just posted. He said, at the request of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, I am directing the Secretary of War, I want you to note, Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. I am authorizing full force if necessary. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Let's be honest about what Trump is doing here. He is directing the U.S. military to clamp down on protests against ICE in Portland. And it's pretty obvious what they're doing here. This is a tweet from Stephen Miller last night who said, we are witnessing domestic terrorist sedition against the federal government. The Joint Terrorism Task Force has been dispatched by the Attorney General pursuant to NSPM 7. All necessary resources will be utilized. The goal of the Trump administration right now is to say that Democrats, that any opposition to Donald Trump, that is sedition against the government, is thereby terrorism, and therefore Donald Trump can send the military to go after these people, or he can imprison these people. That's their plan. They're saying it out loud. So stay vigilant, folks. Keep speaking out. We're going to keep speaking out. We are not going to cower. My name is Brett with the Midas Touch Network. Remember to add the Midas Touch podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for more.
This is breaking news. Donald Trump just declared a U.S. state, Portland, to be a war zone, and he has authorized full force against anti-fascists. He has called for Pete Hegseth to provide troops to protect the war-ravaged Portland. Portland is not a war zone, and the people of this country are not enemy combatants. This is the kind of authoritarian move that Democrats have been warning about. This is fascism. How much longer will democracy survive?
This morning, the President of the United States announced via his social media pages that he was authorizing the newly named Department of War to use full force and kill American citizens that were protesting him and his regime in democratic cities. This is what he posted, just for reference. Specifically, citizens in the city of Portland. There have already been violent interactions between ICE and military members and citizens in LA, in Chicago, and now he is literally sicking the US military on citizens in Portland. This is every bit as serious and as bad as it sounds, and I really feel like we are actually underreacting to this. I want to also point out that he is deliberately referring to anyone who protests his regime as Antifa. And as we all know, they have tried to label Antifa as a terrorist organization. He is trying to villainize and therefore criminalize his opposition. This is as anti-democratic as it gets.
Breaking news. President Trump has just made a major announcement. At the request of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, Trump has ordered Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to deploy troops to Portland, Oregon, a city he calls war-ravaged. The mission? To protect ICE facilities now said to be under siege from Antifa and what Trump is calling other domestic terrorists. In his words, full force will be authorized if necessary. This move signals a dramatic escalation in Trump's efforts to restore order in cities plagued by unrest and to secure federal facilities that have become repeated flashpoints. Supporters are praising it as long overdue, while critics warn it could inflame tensions even further. For now, the order is clear. Federal troops are on standby. Portland and ICE facilities will be defended. And the Trump administration is once again showing it will not hesitate to use military force to maintain control at home. This story is developing fast. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and be sure you follow for more.
Donald Trump just called Portland a war-ravaged city and said he's sending in troops with full force if necessary. Let's talk about why this is one of the most dangerous posts he's made yet. On Truth Social, and I'm gonna post it so you can see, Trump claimed Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and his so-called Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, are mobilizing troops to protect ICE facilities and crack down on so-called domestic terrorists like Antifa. And yes, he literally used the phrase Secretary of War, a position that hasn't existed since 1947. Here's the problem. First, he's using the language of war to describe an American city. And second, he's blurring the line between civilian law enforcement and the military. And third, he authorized full force, which is dangerously vague and could mean anything from mass arrest to open violence. This isn't just a bluff. When a president calls protesters terrorists, when he militarizes immigration enforcement, when he talks about a Secretary of War, he's signaling a shift towards domestic war powers. That's how authoritarian leaders justify crackdowns, by treating dissent like an invasion. So no, this isn't just another Truth Social rant. This is Trump telling us exactly how he plans to use the government and the military against his own people. So pay attention. Share this, because if history teaches us anything, it's that when leaders start calling their citizens the enemy, things get very dark very fast.
So Mango Mussolini just declared war on Portland, Oregon? Well, he's authorizing full force. Look at this. Is there a war going on in Portland, Oregon? Guys, let me know if I missed that headline. But Mango Mussolini over here took to his not-so-true social to post this. Directing the Secretary of War, Pete Kegsbreath, Whiskey Leaks himself, to provide all necessary troops to protect the war-ravaged city of Portland, Oregon. What? In all seriousness, guys, the President of the United States has directed the military to enter yet another American city, and the use of full force What does that even mean? Are we talking law enforcement activities, or are we talking like full military force here? You know what that means. I can't say it. This is disturbing. Peepaw forgot his meds again, yes, but honestly, he's going to keep doing this to blue cities across this country and any city that does not bend to his whim immediately. This should concern everyone.
So if you're just tuning in, let me catch you up with what's all been going on. So there's this rapper named Ice Cube. You know Ice Cube, F the Police, NWA Ice Cube, also cult classic Friday. He's on some type of tour right now. One of those tour stops is Portland. Portland is home to Antifa. Ice Cube on his tour bus got the words Ice Cube written on it, right? Antifa sees that, they're like going to a blind rage. It's like a bull seeing red. So they firebomb it, right? Destroy the bus. Trump gets wind of this by his homegirl, Kristi Noem. She's like, yo, you know your man's Ice Cube? Antifa violated. Trump is like, I know these dudes ain't testing my gangster. I know they not. I just designated them as a terrorist organization. And they try to do this to me on the world stage? Bet. He calls Pete Hegseth. He's like, yo, spin that block. And if any of those mofos feeling froggy, boil them. Now, Antifa, I'd appreciate nothing more but the content that's going to give the internet. But, hey, they ain't playing, okay? You guys are like the final bosses of the woke left, right? And it's really early in the administration, and he's looking to squish. He needs something. He needs to fry something big. Do not be the batter, all right? Do not be the batter. That's all I got to say.
So Donald Trump is ramping up his war against the United States this morning. I don't know what else to call it other than a war against the United States. He says that he is sending the United States military into Portland and is authorizing full force against United States citizens. Here's what Trump just posted. He said, at the request of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, I am directing the Secretary of War, I want you to note, Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. I am authorizing full force if necessary. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Let's be honest about what Trump is doing here. He is directing the U.S. military to clamp down on protests against ICE in Portland. And it's pretty obvious what they're doing here. This is a tweet from Stephen Miller last night, who said, we are witnessing domestic terrorist sedition against the federal government. The Joint Terrorism Task Force has been dispatched by the Attorney General pursuant to NSPM 7. All necessary resources will be utilized. The goal of the Trump administration right now is to say that Democrats, that any opposition to Donald Trump, that is sedition against the government, is thereby terrorism, and therefore Donald Trump can send the military to go after these people, or he can imprison these people. That's their plan. They're saying it out loud. So stay vigilant, folks. Keep speaking out. We're going to keep speaking out. We are not going to cower. My name is Brett with the Midas Touch Network. Remember to add the Midas Touch podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for more.
Well, there we have it. Donald Trump has ordered his Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. I'm also authorizing the full force if necessary. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald Trump has just ordered full force of the U.S. military to be used on an American city upon Americans. Yeah. That's where we're at, folks. This continues months of Trump attempting to declare anyone who is his opponent as a criminal or a terrorist. And terrorist also allows him to normalize his extreme actions. Once you've declared a person or a group terrorist, you're allowed to effectively do anything you want to them within the mindset of the right wing. This is deeply scary and should fill us all with a sense of dread, but that is not what you can live in at this moment. You need to be organized, you need to get together with your community, and you need to set up a plan for what you are going to do when ICE and the military comes to your neighborhood, what you are willing to do, who you are willing to help, and how much you are willing to get done, because all of this will require great courage from many, many people, millions of people, standing up directly against fascism in a direct way. Because this is how we defeat this thing, and this is how people's lives and safety are maintained. So join a trade union, join a community organization, start meeting your friends and neighbors, know what you can trust, and prepare for every eventuality, because that is how we're all going to get through this together.
This morning, President Donald Trump announced that he's sending troops into Portland, Oregon. He said that this was to save, quote, war-ravaged Portland. He said that it's under siege from Antifa and other domestic terrorist organizations, and so he's sending in military troops. Now, the governor of Oregon tweeted out that they've received no information about this, that they've reached out to the White House. She said that there's no national security threat in Oregon and that our communities are, quote, safe and quiet. This is after, of course, Donald Trump has deployed troops to Washington, D.C., to Los Angeles, and most recently to Memphis. I'm curious, if you live in Portland, what you think about this. What are you seeing on the ground? Are you seeing crime that warrants the sending in a National Guard and the use of the military? Or are you not seeing it? Do you agree with the governor of Oregon that the communities are safe and quiet, that perhaps maybe this is a political reason? Regardless, let us know in the comments what you're seeing, especially if you live in Portland and Oregon. And of course, follow along for everything that you need to know as this story develops.
So Mango Mussolini just declared war on Portland, Oregon? Well, he's authorizing full force. Look at this. Is there a war going on in Portland, Oregon? Guys, let me know if I missed that headline. But Mango Mussolini over here took to his not-so-true social to post this. Directing the Secretary of War, Pete Kegsbreath, Whiskey Leaks himself, to provide all necessary troops to protect the war-ravaged city of Portland, Oregon. What? In all seriousness, guys, the President of the United States has directed the military to enter yet another American city, and the use of full force. What does that even mean? Are we talking law enforcement activities, or are we talking like full military force here? You know what that means. I can't say it. This is disturbing. Peepaw forgot his meds again, yes. But honestly, he's going to keep doing this to blue cities across this country, and any city that does not bend to his whim immediately. This should concern everyone.
Donald Trump today just threatened to have the U.S. military open fire on civilians in Portland, Oregon. Very strange story, guys. Trump today said he's going to send the U.S. military to Portland and order them to use full force against civilians in order to protect ICE immigration facilities that are not under threat in Portland. There's no problem with ICE in Portland. In fact, Trump just last month, or just a couple weeks ago, said he wasn't going to send troops to Portland because there was no need to. Everything's fine in Portland. Well, today it's not fine in Portland. For whatever reason, Trump is sending troops, he claims. Again, that would be illegal under U.S. law, but that doesn't seem to matter anymore. And he's ordering them to use full force, which sounds like he means to shoot people, use their weapons. U.S. military, again, illegal. Now, this comes at the time that Trump is having all the generals come to Washington this week. Very unusual move, ordering them to get in line or get out, according to one of the papers. Is this why? Because he's planning on using U.S. troops to open fire against civilians, and if the generals don't agree, of course, the troops aren't going to do it. This is very scary times, guy. Pay attention.
President Donald Trump said on Saturday, September 27th, that he will be sending troops to Portland, Oregon, and he said they will be using full force if necessary. He made the announcement on Truth Social, where he said Portland, Oregon was war-ravaged by Antifa. The ICE detention center in Portland, Oregon has been the site of many protests and several violent clashes. According to the United States government, several ICE agents have been injured and protesters were charged with federal crimes. In an interview in September, President Trump said that living in Portland, Oregon was like living in hell. Portland's mayor, Keith Wilson, has said he has not asked for, nor does he need, the federal government's help. According to the FBI's data, Portland, Oregon doesn't even make it to the top 10 most violent cities in the United States of America. I will be interested to see if this turns out exactly like LA, where Donald Trump fails to occupy one of the cities in his own country.
We have some major news right now. Oregon leaders across the state are blasting the Trump administration's decision to send in military troops to Portland and to say that the military can use, quote, full force against citizens in Portland. From the governor to members of Congress, they all say this is not needed and that the Trump administration is just weaponizing the United States military as its own personal police force. Now, if you know anything about history, Quasi Comitatus prevents exactly that from happening. That's legislation, that's a bill, that's a law that essentially prevents the United States president from using the military as his personal police force, or rather, having the military conduct law enforcement activities on American soil. Now, there's an exception to that, and that's invoking the Insurrection Act for cases of civil unrest. But there is no civil unrest, at least right now, based on local lawmakers. Portland is not a war-ravaged city. It's a very serious situation, and we can't normalize this. So spread the word, follow along for more.